Hello, my name is Tolg and I exist, therefore I think too much. I'm going to read Friedrich Nietzsche's Beyond Good and Evil. I am still on chapter 1. Prejudices of Philosophers. I'm taking it a few points at a time because I rant, and also when I rant, I cuss, and if you don't like listening to people cuss, you do not have to watch this video. You can go away. Otherwise, hi, how are you? So I'm gonna start at point 7. So 7 says, how malicious philosophers can be. Says a philosopher. I know of nothing more stinging than the joke Epicurus took the liberty of making on Plato and the Platonists. He called them Dionysiocolax, or Kolakis. It's a hell of a thing. Okay. In its original sense, and on the face of it, the word signifies flatterers of Dionysius. I wanted to say so much. Consequently, tyrants' accessories and lick spittles. Ew. Besides this, however, it is as much as to say they are all actors. There is nothing genuine about them, for Dionysiocolax was a popular name for an actor, and the latter is really the malignant reproach that Epicurus cast upon Plato. He was annoyed by the grandiose manner, the mise en scène in... It's in French. I'm one of those white people who is so many different European countries put together, and French is one of them. But my tongue does not curl in the way that French should. So I have a very difficult time pronouncing this. Mise en scène, style of which Plato and his scholars were masters, of which Epicurus was not a master. He, the old school teacher of Samos, who sat concealed in his little garden at Athens and wrote 300 books, perhaps out of rage and ambitious envy of a Plato. Who knows? Greece took 100 years to find out who the garden god Epicurus really was. Did she ever find out? I don't know that can be a story of representative of all philosophers more than it's a story of humanity. And to be fair to Epicurus, I don't know that they ought to have been jealous. From everything I have understood, Plato was a cult of personality. And in my experiences of being around people that like producing cults of personalities around them, or being the cult leader of that cult of personality, it's a lot of legwork. It is a lot of legwork. You're putting in a lot of effort. And I guess busy work makes people feel like life is worth living, so probably to some that's effort well had. I just feel like Epicurus had everything that they wanted themselves. They had the intellect to be able to write. They had the books, and they were a philosopher in and of their own right, even if they didn't have all of the followers. If jealousy or envy was had, it was not necessarily entirely deserved. What people don't understand when they're outside looking in is how much effort goes into the inside of it. So point 8, it's a very small point, and I'm wondering if I should just go on to read point 9 after this. There is a point in every philosophy at which the conviction of the philosopher appears on the scene, or to put it in the words of an ancient mystery, Adventavit asinus poser et fortissimus. This is still prejudices of philosophers. And I'm not entirely sure, because as much as I have ever understood it, prejudice implies a negative aspect. I'm not sure that this is negative. This again is just revisiting point 6, where he understands that people exist as their own individual rather than an extension of his self. And I wonder if, translating this adventavit asinus poser et fortissimus would help me understand this better. I'm using my phone to record, so I'm not going to look it up. Point 9. You desire to live according to nature? O you noble Stoics, what fraud of words! Imagine to yourselves a being like nature, boundlessly extravagant, boundlessly indifferent, without purpose or consideration, without pity or justice, at once fruitful and barren and uncertain. Imagine to yourselves indifference as a power. How could you live in accordance with such indifference? To live, is not that just endeavoring to be otherwise than this nature? Is not living valuing, preferring, being unjust, being limited, endeavoring to be different? The issue that arose when I was a part of the cult, for those 5 years, was, are you living or are you surviving? I think surviving is in league with nature. You know how we're stuck on hunter-gatherer, and so our anxiety is still being produced on the premise of fearing being chased through the jungle by a jaguar, and we're still hunting down sugars, and that's why a lot of our addictions are sugar-led, salt-led, and we're still hunting down water in a desert, so we're attracted to shiny things. And therein, I think being stuck in survival is in league with being in accordance to nature, and I therein wonder if he might be right, if living is standing against the flow of nature, choosing something for yourself. And to be fair, my understanding of the reason to continue living is to learn. The point to life is to learn. And in surviving, you are learning, but I feel like there's only so much to that learning. And therein, I think it gets to a point where you do need to learn instead how to live. And in living and standing against the flow of nature, I feel like there's provided in that enough contrast to which the lessons in life continue past just how to survive. You now understand what to survive for. And granted that your imperative living according to nature means actually the same as living according to life, how could you do differently? Why should you make a principle out of what you yourselves are and must be? Principle? I don't know. I guess that's according to whomever the fuck is doing it. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a principle more than it's a whim. In reality, however, it is quite otherwise with you. While you pretend to read with rapture the canon of your law in nature, I wonder if he's taking the piss out of religion. You want something quite the contrary, you extraordinary stage players and self-deluders. Whoa. In your pride, you wish to dictate your morals and ideals to nature herself, and to incorporate them therein. You insist that it shall be nature according to the Stoa, and would like everything to be made after your own image, as a vast eternal glorification and generalism of Stoicism. I have been trying to appreciate Stoicism. In my ADHD, I'm currently reading 3 different books. And it is taking me forever to get through Mark Antony. Good God, is he wordy. I have some amount of appreciation for Stoicism, just like I have some amount of appreciation for Buddhism. And when I say just like, I mean that I find them very relative to one another. But I can't say that I stand by absolutely everything. And so in his critique of Stoicism, saying that it stands against what is natural, and I feel like this could be my takeaway, and it may not be a correct takeaway, but morality absolutely is subjective per the culture and the community needing to understand how they get along. And so if you were to try to apply morality to Stoicism, and Stoicism teaches you how to not apply yourself, essentially, I just feel like there's oil and water. That morality and Stoicism are oil and water. Because to be moral would to need to apply yourself. But to be stoic is to try to take yourself out of situations and only be logical. Is morality logical? I'm not sure if it always is. You would hope that your morals are logical, but I don't think that in them being subjective per the community taken into consideration, that morals are always logical. There's currently a debate going on about cannibalism, for instance, and, morality. I think humanity debating the morality about cannibalism is that how could you ever eat something of similar nature to yourself? They've lived a whole life. You should be able to ideologically understand that they have loved ones, on and on and on and on. So if you apply Stoicism to it, and you take out the consideration of whatever this individual is going through in their own life, and you just apply dry logic to it, the taboo exists purely because of the chemical dependency created. You're doubling up on all the chemicals when you eat humans. It's highly addictive. And then you get into resources and all of that. And so certain countries have ruled that in moments of starvation, it's fine to eat others. But there are laws of procuring, and then you get into permission, consent. And so the current debate points out that in the US, 49 states made it legal to participate in cannibalism, so long as you're not cooking it or selling it, with Idaho being the only state where it is illegal. All of this to say that morally, I think it's generally understood you should not eat people. Stoically, it is logically understood that the reason you shouldn't eat people is because you shouldn't eat too many people, and them being chemically addictive. Just like you shouldn't eat too many burgers in one sitting. So, I don't think that Stoicism is always in line with morality. Or maybe the other way around, that morality is always in line with Stoicism. And I agree with Nietzsche. To have made a wild example that is probably upsetting. With all your love for truth, you have forced yourselves so long, so persistently, and with such hypnotic rigidity to see nature falsely, that is to say, stoically, that you are no longer able to see it otherwise, and to crown all, some unfathomable superciliousness. Wow, I can say superciliousness, but I can't say unfathomable. Ouch. Gives you the Bedlamite, which is capitalized Bedlam. Oh, Bedlam. That was like the initial person's Sodom and Gomorrah. Another city of sin. Superciliousness gives you the Bedlamite hope that because you are able to tyrannize over yourselves, Stoicism is self-tyranny. Yeah. It's rigidity at the very least. Nature will also allow herself to be tyrannized over. I really like Nietzsche. Get it, Nietzsche. Tell them that Mother Nature doesn't answer to anybody. Fuck yeah. Is not the Stoic a part of nature? But this is an old and everlasting story. What happened in old times with the Stoics still happens today, as soon as ever a philosophy begins to believe in itself. It always creates the world in its own image. It cannot do otherwise. Philosophy is this tyrannical impulse itself, the most spiritual will to power, the will to creation of the world, the will to the causa prima? Okay, forgive my inability to understand other languages. I am limited there. It's interesting because it read like point 6 was him understanding that he ought to be more considerate of other people's existences. And then point 9 is saying, yeah, fuck you guys for not being sympathetic to nature and existence in and of itself. So at this point, it's difficult for me to understand if this critique he extends to other people is also a self-critique and he immediately learned from his own folly and then just turned it around on everybody, or if this has been a critique he's had of everybody and then had a moment of self-reflection, or if that was even self-reflection in the first place and it was just constantly judgment against everybody because everybody sucks. The takeaway from today is that Nietzsche is persistently miserable. And I think the reason for his misery changes moderately, but remains mostly the same. He has too much to think about. In him choosing the career path of a philosopher, it made him forever raw to everything that is always happening and forever in need of paying attention to everything that is always happening. I think he is perpetually exhausted. Which may further fuel his anger towards philosophy and philosophers in general, especially if what they're doing is aiming to not necessarily make sense of things, but rule things to have these things make the sense they want them to. I couldn't appreciate him. I couldn't appreciate him more. So on that note, good night, and I hope you make sense of yourself.